learning more about a new legal fight around the development of a data center in Sulphur Springs. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. That proposed center will be located near Highway 11. Now, a resident of the city is suing the city. He's claiming the city violated the Open Meetings Act when they signed development agreements. Tonight, KLTV7 investigates. J.D. Conti explains how this could further slow a project that is already in legal limbo.
The city of Sulphur Springs is being sued again. Jack Curtis, a city resident, is suing the city over this data center development. The city has partnered with the developer, MSB Global, to create what would be one of the largest data centers in the country. He declined to speak to us on camera, but in the suit, Curtis argues residents like himself were never made aware of the project. He says the Sulphur Springs City Council violated the Open Meetings Act when they discussed and voted on agreements with developers. On December 19, 2024, the city signed a letter of intent for the land with MSB Global. In his suit, Curtis attached a meeting notice for that day. The notice said the council would discuss real property and economic development. According to city council minutes, the council approved the letter of intent shortly after reconvening from executive session. In his suit, Curtis writes, "The minutes do not contain any specific information that would inform the public as to the nature of the LOI, nor is the counterparty named. This information could only reasonably be obtained after the fact, once the LOI became public knowledge, not through any action of the council." Curtis makes a similar argument for when the city signed the Chapter 380 economic agreement. We did our own investigation on similar claims from residents last year. KLTV7 reviewed a year and a half of city council minutes starting in August of 2024. There was no mention of the words data center, AI, or the developer, MSB Global. The council often discussed road and utility work on Thermo Road, the street that leads to the project. City manager Mark Maxwell told us on the phone they're, quote, confident we did things the right way and will settle it in court. Amid this new lawsuit, construction is on hold at the site. The previous landowner is suing the city over a deed restriction and power generation. Curtis is asking the court to find that the Open Meetings Act was violated. He's asking a judge to void those agreements. That includes the letter of intent for the land and the Chapter 380 economic agreement. If the court finds that, he's asking the judge to refer the matter for a criminal investigation. J.D. Conti, KLTV7 News.
No court dates have been set yet. The city has 20 days from last Friday to respond.